Hey, Community Bricklayers Village family. It is July 2nd, 2020, and as promised, we are returning to you to continue our podcast series regarding the issue around people with felonies trying to attain suitable housing, re-enter society, regain their composure within their family unit and structure, as well as them being able to self-sustain as they re-enter society, and or even if they had not served time, if they were charged with a felony and may have been released on other conditions and stipulations of probation. It is hard for this population. We have gotten quite a few phone calls, more than what we'd like. And now it's time during this primary elections and presidential elections for us to pose these questions. So let's continue with part 2. We have 2 callers calling in with their separate entities, one from New York, one in our local area of Delaware. Both ambassadors of Community Bricklayers Village. We're doing the scoping, we're doing the research, and we're doing the analyzing of these issues. Stay tuned. I just want to thank you for coming on our Community Bricklayers podcast platform to share what took place with you, your instance, your takeaway, and what it is that you've seen immediately that needed to take place. Like, how did you process?
Like, I've been looking up things, and it's illegal to discriminate. Mm-hmm. However, there's no protection, and that's intentional. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be the next part of our civil rights movement.
Amen.
We're not talking about that. And so, I want to be involved. Like, it's important to me.
Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, in your situation, being faced with that, what kinds of things do you want to see or understand better about the discriminatory practices with felons and housing?
I want to understand the fear. Like, essentially, the conversation that I had with the rental agent or whoever was, I would still be on the lease financially responsible, and this person would be listed as an occupant, right? Like, your child is listed as an occupant. And I was told, even with them being listed as an occupant, not being financially responsible, they could not be in the building because they had a felony. I explained to her it wasn't a felony, an egregious felony, right, that impacts children, for example, because I draw the line with that, right?
Yes.
This was a nonviolent, white-collar crime felony that debt was paid and time was served, less than a year. And so now you're telling me that we're denying this person housing because of it. I don't understand what the fear is, especially if it's a nonviolent felony, and that's not to exclude people who do have violent felonies, because everyone has a story. There's always context to the situations that people find themselves in. Mm-hmm. But I'm just trying to understand, what is the fear? Mm-hmm. What is the fear? Are we protecting, dare I say, white people? Mm-hmm. Like, are we protecting a certain image? Like, or do you have a certain visualization, imagination of what it means? Like, that's the thing. It's like, all of this is steeped in so much racism because all it's predicated on is your imagination. When you say a felon, what comes to mind?
Amen.
Most people are going to think black man, tattoos on their face, like whatever wild imaginative thing that comes to mind. Mm-hmm. And that's not what it is. They're fathers, they're lovers, they're providers, they're protectors, they're community advocates who just fell on the wrong side of the law, like we all do sometimes. I think, some people are treated better when they do worse things. Like, I'm just trying to put the pieces together, and it's not making any sense for me. So for me, I want to know why. Give me rationale. Don't just say, oh, we're denying this person because they have a felony. I want to know why that word triggers management companies. Why? It's almost like I can take this even further and think about historically how black folks have been denied housing through FHA loans and redlining. It's like black people are undesirable, so we're going to draw a line around this community and make it such that you can't cross that boundary or that line, and we're going to make it seem like it's because of your income and deny you of loans, et cetera, but it's really because you're black.
Amen. Yes.
And I think that's synonymous with having a felon.
One thing that stood out for me when you were speaking was the fact that he's going on as an occupant. And I was thinking about when I worked reentry, it's amazing that I knew children charged as adults. So therefore, what happens with the occupancy then? When a teenager has now been charged, are you telling a person whose child may be charged as an adult, maybe they only did less than 3 years and it's still before they're 18, and they can't come back home? What goes on in that situation, as well as what goes on in yours? What goes on in anybody that's over 18? There's no preventative infrastructure to prevent recidivism. There's no safety net to reacclimate them into a practical society. They have been stripped inside and out of coming out to anything normal or even grasping the concept because they didn't think it out that far. They're not concerned. They're only at that point saying that SBI number, that number that we identified them with as a prisoner, they're going to come back. That's what they say. They'll be back.
Furthermore, it's just like, what was the point
exactly
of them serving time?
Exactly.
I just really want to bring awareness to like how much our money, our taxes go into funding prisons and not schools and education. Like, it is factual. They build more prisons than they do schools. People, basically, the government is scapegoating responsibility because there's this new trend that, our prisons are privatized, and they're not.
Exactly.
Like, the government still has their hand in it. Like, our tax money is still going to fund those programs, and it's like, well, what's the point of serving time if all it's doing is perpetuating a cyclical program?
It's a vicious cycle.
What's the point?
Because people got stocks in it. It's a big business. But now I found out today they have a housing for felons. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna delve into that and see how just antiquated that list may be, or how much resources is really there for these people. I just want you to know we're in support. Let's stay in communication, and I think this will overturn, or we will get some light shed on it so we can move forward.
Amen.
All right. All right, Community Bricklayers Village. We have one of our ambassadors who have reached out to so-called reentry places and apartment complexes and properties that accept people with felonies. And we want to get his response and what he was told as he reached out and his conclusion. So, what happened, sir?
Okay, first, I typed in apartments in Delaware that accept people with felonies. And they gave me a bunch of different listings. So from that listing, I picked 3. I picked Sunnyside Apartments in Smyrna, Haverford Apartments in Wilmington, and Woodside Apartments. And I guess that would be Newport. I called all 3 numbers. The people that I spoke to, they sounded friendly, but my first direct question was, you work with people with felonies. And all 3 of them told me the same thing, that that's an automatic disqualification.
Did you ask them why they posted and publicized it as if they do take felonies?
I didn't, because after a little bit of further research, you know how you can look up people's responses and reviews to certain posts they put up? A lot of people were saying this site is no good because it's really just up there for the free advertisement that different companies use. So it's almost like it's fake news.
To kind of clickbait, draw you in to call them to just try to apply for a regular apartment, basically.
Everything that I clicked on that pertaining to that, nothing gave me a direct answer. Which is why I decided, okay, well, I'm going to just go ahead and call, because what I was looking for was a site that would give me an actual listing of the apartments and the phone numbers. But you can't, it's not on there. And the ones they do have you, they'll tell you automatically, no, we don't.
Nice.
So from talking to other people, I found out that basically what you got to do is you got to look for these private owners, preferably in Newcastle and Wilmington, which is where a lot of people want to stay away from. But unfortunately, that's the only option that's left for them, and find a private landlord that would agree to it.
Now, you and I and another CB, Community Bricklayer affiliate, they called in and spoke about we all discovered at the same time the discriminatory practices about this. And we also all found the HUD reaction. And it's kind of like the verbiage they use. They can't come out and say you can't move in because of these, but they do it discreetly in a subtle way. That's what she encountered, but it's still discriminatory.
That's what I came across too. When I Googled, I forgot what page it was, but I took a screenshot of it. Mm-hmm. When it said the law is, and it stated that no landlord is allowed to deny you solely based on the fact that you have a felony.
Yes.
So what most landlords do is they find a slick way around it by saying, well, no, they're telling you no for another reason. Oh. But the people that I called, evidently, they don't feel as though they need to be slick because they came straight out and said, no.
So I'm going to shed some light on this because this is a national thing. It's not a localized thing. So we want to try to approach this, and we're going to do this by trying to enact something and try to change the law. Like, show us the law so we can understand how y'all came to this conclusion.
Yeah, you gotta make it make sense.
Yes.
And it seems like what a lot of people are doing now is they've gotten so comfortable that they don't even try to knock it no more.
Because we didn't ask.
Oh, you got a felony? Nah, you no good.
And we didn't ask. We didn't ask when this was enacted. We didn't ask when this is giving permission. This is authorized. This is law. We don't ask because it's a lot of diversity in felonies. There isn't one group or color that has more felonies. It's just what you rebound from. If it's a white collar and you have a lot of money and you got 6-figure or 7-figure income, when you catch your white collar Ponzi scam or your scamming of your nonprofit budget funds, you go right back to your mansion when you get out of jail in 3 weeks. But if you're on the low end of the spectrum and you don't have all those components in place for you, you hit rock bottom and you can't re-enter society.
You can't. You know what? The one lady I talked to, I believe it was at Haverford.
Mm-hmm.
She asked me what type of felony was it, and I just off the top of my head, I said, "Well, what if it was something drug related, but there was no jail time involved?" Mm-hmm. And she said, "Anything drug related or anything with involving a violence is automatic termination."
Wow.
But when you read the reviews on the apartment sites, they're all horrible. Everybody says this is the last place that you would want to live because of the conditions there.
What?
So if you don't want to rent to people because they have these, then how are all these people on your property?
Wow. Wow. And it's like that thing with subpar living conditions. It's like they don't care because they know these set of people, this population don't have very many options. But
mm-hmm. And that's why they can do it.
But now we got to change that because we got to buy up the block. And there are people like this other, affiliate who has good credit and can get any loan they want. And it's people like us who work on our credit and have sustained ourselves where we can teach our generations in the Generation X and the people right behind us to buy up the block. And a lot of them have the financial means to buy up the block. I think that's where we can encourage them. That's our focus for this. It's just not to complain about it. But now if you're saying we can't rent, then we need to own.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that would be the next logical step. Or if not, get those same people that's going to buy up the block, even if they're not going to make them homeowners, rent to people that that have certain special circumstances and need a little bit of help readjusting their life and getting, back in the groove of things.
And that's where the state and local funding comes in to do that because they don't want to do that. So we need to strive off of coming together with our business credit and coming together with our finances. Even if you don't need much business credit and finances, they're going to front you that. But we need the people that's going to build the property or tear it down and rehab it and do what you got to do. And I think a lot of youngsters we know in our network are ready to do that. And they have the means to do that. Mm-hmm. I thank you for reaching out and looking for these things. And I definitely am forwarding this podcast to the state representatives that have reached out to community bricklayers. So if there is a building they want to donate, if it is such and such, that we have nonprofits in place in our network to receive that and rehab that and start somewhere and change the mindset of this whole situation. So that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime.